Hello, my dear friends. Today I will speak in English for my favorite Republican Party fans and supporters. Uh, this text is called Project 1619 and Putin's Secret Military Operation, or SVO, uh, 2022. They are both boots and a pair, and those on the left foot, they are useless. The meaning of this expression, as I've said, two boots, a pair, yes, and those on the left foot. This has a double meaning. One is not better than the other, and the second meaning, and both are useless. One boot, Joseph Biden, lives in the Washington swamp, but his project 1619 climbed out of the New York branch of that swamp of corruption. And immediately, that project 1619 launched a frenzied propaganda against President Trump from August 2019 onwards. Like putting in the secret military operation 2022, the project of Joseph Biden has chosen to mobilize the mob in the liberal and figurative sense of the once great America against the hardworking rednecks and the middle class in the ranks and files of the US Republican Party and supporters of Donald Trump in the armed forces. According to Project 1619, the black population of the United States must be offended by history, and it's easy to protest against Trump and the Republican Party. They think so. And all the layers of offended, of US history and life. They are so-called born protesters. In the United States, 42 million people live and vote. They're African Americans or Black Americans, some of whom, say 15%, are mulattoes, with a mixture of white, about 18%, Indian, about 3 or 5%, as well as Asian and Hispanic blood, about 2%. In general, blacks, 20%, and Chicanos, nearly 19% of the total population of the United States. These 31% allegedly became the support of the Democratic Party from 2021. This is not the case, although the Dems before November 8, well, very soon in 2 days, are still corrupting these voters with petty benefits at the expense of the state treasury and rednecks that stand behind the Republican Party. Project 1619 serves the same purpose in the armed forces, where from January 2021, the black-skinned Secretary of Defense General Lloyd Austin has introduced a cleansing of personnel from white supremacists. And Vice President Kamala Harris, at the expense of the state treasury, encourages the entry from Latin America of legal but more illegal migrants as a support of the US Democratic Party in federal and local elections. Already the wokeism, or awakening from slavery and white racism, has been introduced since this autumn, in schools and universities, in addition to the practice of blackening the rank and files of the armed forces of the United States. With the seizure of the White House by Joseph Biden, the Kremlin authorities began to copy the Project 1619, rewriting the history of Russia, not from 1917, but from the time of the Tsars, and even paganism, Satanism for schools, universities, and the armed forces, plus conscripts and reservists uh, in 2022, this year. On November 4, ex-president of the Russian Federation, Medvedev, called on the residents of the Russian Federation to fight Satan, Satan, devil. You know, it's the top official of the Russian Federation. Nothing can be added. In schools, universities, and the media of the Russian Federation since September, this September, the fundamentals of Russian statehood have been have already been introduced in case of distortion of many historical events. 2 days ago, President Putin uh, met historians of Russia, and they stood all for occupation of Ukraine. So it's a copy of the Biden's Project 1619, to be more exact, and to put it in short. And all this for the sake of mobilizing for the so-called needs of the secret military operation in Ukraine, in non-Russian population from depressed regions, offended by the history of the USSR, or prisoners of as non-slaves. I mean, prisoners that were freed by friends of Putin in prisons all over the Russian Federation, plus foreign workers in the Russian Federation. They also are enlisted to the troops in Ukraine. The so-called SVO, or secret military operation, is based on the historical nonsense that Peter the Great bequeathed to return Ukraine to Russia. And in fact, this is the main motives for the capture and colonization of the lithium-rich Donbass, the essential part of Ukraine. It is the very goal. It is the very goal of the secret military operation which Kremlin needs when changing the horses at the crossing. I mean, oil and gas. They are becoming useless when trying to create its own e-vehicles and IT industries. Lithium is the basis for these industries. That's pure illusions during the of now millions of scientists and students from the Russian Federation. They could create EV and IT industries, but those who are still here in Russia, they don't have even intention to do it because they are poorly paid and demoralized with idiotic repressions and so-called laws against foreign agents, the fifth column, etc. Like in the United States, the so-called new history in the Russian Federation receives the support of the public sector with the state treasury's money, while private schools are being slandered by the authorities and finally closed. In the armed forces of the Russian Federation, among conscripts from non-Russian regions, the spirit of Genghis Khan is being planted against Ukrainians as part of the Slavs. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, like his colleague Lloyd Austin, stands for the intolerance to the colored. Sorry, he stands for the intolerance of the colored population to the pampered white parasites on the neck of the colored regions. It is crystal clear hidden color racism against the white inhabitants of Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic states countries, non-white bureaucrats, residents of the North Caucasus, and guest workers from Central Asia have been mobilized for almost 9 months. They're all promised citizenship of the Russian Federation after the secret military operation if they remain alive. Following the example of the black colleague from the United States, Army General without proper military education Sergei Shoigu also plans to blacken allegedly his armed forces in Ukraine. Just imagine, with recruits from African countries for 500,000 tons of so-called free grain, in fact, stolen from Ukraine during the secret military operation. Here is another reason to say that Biden and Putin are two boots apparent, both left. They ignore the realities and future of their countries and the historical denial of the past, they say, should woken up ex-slaves and robbed strata of the population from lethargic sleep in the so-called pro-Dems wokeism. In summer 2020, pro-Dems mobs pulled down statues of Christopher Columbus in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Richmond, Virginia, and decapitated another in Boston, targeting monuments seen as symbols of white supremacy. Poor Christopher Columbus has become a symbol of white supremacy. It's rubbish. And the same acts could be repeated by November 8 in 2 days with supporters of the denial of history to promote the Dems and their partners in Russia to wake up and not put up with past slavery and today's discrimination. They pronounce good words for bad deals, especially against Ukraine. It's absurd when you consider that Joseph Biden himself has been sculpting slavery and discrimination in Washington, D.C. for more than 40 years. Biden with General Lloyd Austin smells of black racism, but since 1619. But Putin and Shoigu are more modestly personifying their pure clannish St. Petersburg Czechism or KGBism, to be more exact, allegedly headed by Peter the Great himself. Just imagine. These two autocrats, Biden and Putin, are eager to be in power through repression and vertical power from their own ranks, mobs, and bands. And let them be losers on the coming Tuesday at least, and then. That's all that I wanted to say to you, my dear friends. Please send this message to supporters of Donald Trump and the Republican Party for the remaining 2 days. God bless us, and we shall overcome. Bye bye.